Gameweek16 is here and transfer fever has taken over the FPL community with 5 free transfers awarded to every manager in the game. Yet for me, the FPL Nightmare, I have not made a single one, and that might surprise you given the propensity for hits I have shown in recent game weeks. But the simple fact is that this is a difficult game week to predict. There is a lot going on. And I know a lot of people moved early. I know people moved last weekend making 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 transfers. And that was interesting to me because I didn't need to do that. The reason being that I took all those hits and now I'm watching everybody below this 5 transfer advantage to sign the players I already own. So that's good. What is also good is that it meant I had not moved early for the Daniel Munoz injury and I can react to that accordingly. So yeah, I still have all 5 free transfers in the bank, and it's nice for once to be entering a game week from a position of strength, because in game week 15 it finally came good for your old pal the FPL Nightmare. A 1 million place rank rise in one game week, almost unheard of in this game, but the FPL Nightmare managed to pull it off, and it has been a tough season. It has been a challenging season. But this time it came good. The green arrow to match the green Christmas tree and the green jumper, and it was a big one. Bruno Fernandes coming in clutch in the last game of the game week, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I wish I'd captained him like so many people did. Oh, I thought about it. Well, the fact is I didn't do it. It doesn't matter what you think about in this game. What matters is what you do. And what Bruno Fernandes did was get me 18 points and a massive rank rise. And now it's how we build on that. And it's a challenging question because of the amount of injury doubts in my squad. I will, at the time of recording, I've got Jurrien Timber possibly injured. I have Senesi, yellow flag. Declan Rice, yellow flag. Daniel Munoz ruled out long term. I mean, that's 4 big players missing out already, and it's like if I was to replace all them, that's all them transfers gone. I'd be rolling one transfer over, and I just don't think that is a good strategy. We need to have, of course, Longstaff as well. Longstaff injured. I have 5 players flagged, and by the time this comes out, Mikel Arteta may have said, oh, Timber's fine, Rice is fine, and Iraola may have said Senesi's fine, and then suddenly I don't really need to do anything, You look at my team as it stands: Henderson, Munoz, Timber, O'Reilly, Mbeumo, Fernandes, Rice, Foden, Haaland, Voltemada, Igor Thiago with Senesi, Mukiele and Longstaff on the bench. If those yellow flags became, a fit to play, suddenly I can just bench Munoz and I've got Mukiele as a sub and the rest are good to go. And I don't need to make the transfers. So this is why I've waited. I've waited, one, because I don't really need the team value. People are getting all het up about team value, and I get it when you've waited a long time to sign the likes of Thiago, Phil Foden, Nico O'Reilly. These are players rising in price and quite fast as well. I mean, I feel like we're in a bit of transferception where the price rises are fueling the transfers, and then the transfers are fueling the price rises, and everyone's signing these players and they're not even sure if they want them. They're just sure that if they do want them, they don't want to be priced out, and that's good. That's beautiful for me, because suddenly those 4-point hit to bring in Igor Thiago doesn't look quite so stupid. The 4-point hit to bring in Jurrien Timber, well, not ideal for him, but Phil Foden. I've already. I mean, some of these players I've gained about £1.5 million on in price swings, and that is a wonderful thing. That is why I'm not worried about losing the odd 0.1, 0.2 million as it stands. And the thing is, I always planned free hit 16 as a potential option, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what can I do with these transfers? How can I field a strong team for the game week 16 if I use my transfers. You know, if I save the free hit for game week 19 or, you know, another one of the other 2 game weeks. And I talked about it on the podcast the other night. I don't think 17 and 18 are good game weeks for the free hit because I don't think you've got the teams to target. I feel like 17, you've got all the weaker teams playing each other. And then game week 18 as well, I feel like the real advantage in game week 18 is Liverpool against Wolves. But, you know, will we even know? Will Liverpool even have refound the form by then? We just don't know. So I could be waiting for that and then decide I don't want them. And, you know, we'll talk about that when I get into the free hit drafts. But game week 19 does look great. You know, you've got some strong teams playing some weak teams, you know, and that is the one I've been targeted. That is, you know, I've always kept in the back of my mind all season that game week 19 is a great week to play a trip. And that's why you don't have to panic. If you've got a trip left, bench boost, triple captain, you know, even your wild card is a good one because you can get into all these strong players for great fixtures and then, you know, you're sorted for the next 10 game weeks. But for me, it's free hit. I feel like it's 16 or 19. And what is the advantage of going this week? Well, for me, with all those red flags and yellow flags, the advantage is time. I could make the transfers and I've looked at them and what I came up with was Voltemada to Guiu and Longstaff to Bruno Guimaraes, Umbumo to Saka and Munoz to Lewis Hall. And, you know, I like them transfers. They're quite aggressive transfers. Lewis Hall, probably going to be overlooked because he doesn't have the DEFCONs because he isn't 100% nailed, but he's Newcastle's best left-back by a considerable margin, unless Kieran Trippier is fit, and then it's a bit closer between him and Livramento. But, you know, Trippier's getting on in age, and Newcastle... Well, to be honest, I feel like the reason we're conceding so many late goals is partly because Trippier's not there. The organisation, the experience, but... and it is a bit of a worry, because, you know, you look at Newcastle, you think Sunderland is a decent game to target. You know, the numbers are declining, the form is declining somewhat, and, you know, it is a derby, but Newcastle are a better team than Sunderland, and that's just the facts. And you would expect a better team to beat a weaker team any day of the week. You know, this is how we play the game. We target the weaker teams, the promoted teams, and Newcastle are a better team than Sunderland. Whether that translates into performance, we don't know, because Newcastle mentally look a little bit fragile. Certainly when they're defending a 1-goal lead late in a game. So that would be the risk, but that's the advantage of Hall, because he might get subbed early and then you don't have to worry about that. But I just think he looks so good going forward, and I feel he might get overlooked. But, you know, I do like him as an option. He's so attacking, and he's quite... People say about the DEFCONs, but I think Hall might surprise a few people with the DEFCONs because he is quite an aggressive fullback. He gets tight to his man, and he makes the tackles. He gets a foot around and flicks it away, and then he gets back on. But whether that will translate, he obviously got them against Kudos for Spurs, but Kudos is the Spurs talisman. So there is that element that they're funneling it all to him. So I quite like Hall, but then if I do them transfers, I've used 4 transfers. And not only that, I've still got Senesi and Timber as doubts, so I'm banking on one of them being fit, or I'm playing Mukiele, who maybe he'll do well, maybe he'll get the DEFCONs. I don't want to play Sunderland players when it's a derby. It's just me. The game is about managing emotion as much as your players. And then, but the other thing is as well, it does leave me a bit weak, because if Rice misses out, I've got no attacking sub. I've got Guiu, but, you know, he's not really a player. He's a dead spot in the team. And I just don't feel like I look at that and I think 4 transfers, this massive advantage mid-season, 4 transfers, and that's what I end up with. And it doesn't appeal. What appeals to me is waiting a week to make these moves, because if I wait a week, Senesi is cleared, and then I think he's got Burnley. Timber could be cleared. Declan Rice could be cleared. And then suddenly the yellow flags have gone. I'm left with Longstaff, who was my last sub anyway, so it doesn't really matter, and Daniel Munoz. And that's quite good. I think that's quite good because I could deal with Munoz next week. And do I want a Crystal Palace defender? Maybe Mark Gahey for a few weeks before he secures a big move, if that's what happens. I don't know. It would be nice to see how Crystal Palace defend against one of the best attacks in the world without Munoz. I think that extra week of information could be very powerful. People will be seeing everyone move on to Joachim Anderson, and I get it. The data is good, even if the goals conceded are not. And he is playing Burnley away from home, which is never ideal, but if they wait a week, would they prefer Chris Richards? Would they prefer Mark Gahey? I feel like the extra week is power. And what I like in this game, people say, oh, how did you make all those hits weeks ago? And now you've got 5 free transfers and you're in 2 minds about even using them. And the simple fact is that I'm not looking to spend a lot of transfers. That is not my modus operandi. What I am looking for in this game is an advantage, a chance to go against the conventional thinking and strategy to gain the edge. And I need an edge because I'm 2.4 million in the world, which is, of course, a million places better off than last time, but it does need to improve. I do need to find an edge. Part of that may be going against Haaland for captaincy every week, because yes, he can get 9. He'll probably start at a baseline of 8 points. And if you work off that, Haaland's going to get 8 points a week. Can I find a player every week that can get more than 8 points? Well, I think you can. If you look at Wolves, if you look at Burnley, if you target the players from these teams, playing these teams, I feel like you can take on Haaland. And there's other teams as well. Bruno Fernandes against Bournemouth, it's a good fixture. Bournemouth are terrible away from home defensively. Yes, and AC gets the DEFCONs, but they just concede goals. So that is an option as well. But I don't like the transfers. I feel like going into Gameweek 17 with 5 free transfers is powerful. And that's what I'd like to do. So I am going to go for the free hit. I am pretty sure. Now, I'm not set on the draft yet because I need to see the press conferences, but I do have some ideas in mind. I just want to run them through with you. Now, the first one is, the bog standard Haaland draft. And I've been working on drafts a lot. I've got quite a few. It's not so bad. Now, if I want a traditional kind of draft, then what I would look at is something a bit like this. And I'm not set on it, but it's a 4-4-2, which is one of the reasons I'm not set on it. Sanchez in goal, White and Hincapié in defence with O'Reilly in cash, Bruno Fernandes, Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden and Cole Palmer in midfield, and then Igor Thiago and Erling Haaland up front with Saka as captain. And then the bench, I've got Lewis Miley, I think he'll start the derby because for one, Joe Linton came off injured, and for two, Lewis Miley's been our best midfielder by Bruno Fernandes this season. He's had limited time, but he has maximised that time. He's been better than Tonali in recent weeks, and Tonali is the best midfielder in the league. So that says it all about Lewis Miley. Great goal in the week. I feel like he's going to go with Miley. And Miley's shown he can handle a derby. He did it in the Cup a couple of years ago. And, they all celebrated crunching the 16-year-old kid in a 3-0 defeat. And, and Lewis Miley, He's got goals. He's bulked out. He is a unit. Like you might say, oh, we'll play Joe Linton for the physicality, but Miley's probably more physical than Joe Linton because, I mean, Joe Linton looks a busted flush at the moment, which would be a shame because he's a lot of great memories. It does feel like it's coming to the end of an era at Newcastle. I feel like this summer coming up, going to be a lot of turnover, but that's not for this. So yeah, I've got Miley as the sub along with Guiu and Heaven. Any 3.8 million defender doesn't really matter. I quite like this draft. I feel like Sanchez, he's improved. He's keeping a lot of clean sheets, making a few saves. Everton's a difficult fixture, but not too bad. Excuse me. And then you've got White and Hincapié. Like, Wolves are poor. And if I'm going with Lewis Miley as first sub, you need nailed players. I would prefer to have Timber. And maybe I could work it around a bit and get Timber in here, but then it's like you're weakening somewhere else for a player who might not even make it. So White and Hincapié is fine. I feel White could go big if he plays. The slight worry with Ben White on a free hit is that he hasn't played a lot of football, and now we're talking about 3 games in 7 days or what have you. Not ideal. Matty Cash, great form, playing West Ham away. West Ham don't have the best attacking numbers. They are improved. They do have Jared Bowen, who is always dangerous. They do have Callum Wilson, who is a proven goal scorer, but Cash is in good form. Sometimes you go with the form. West Ham's still a good fixture. That's fine. Fernandes, Saka, Foden, Haaland, Thiago need no explanation. And then Cole Palmer. It's a free hit. You've got to take a gamble somewhere. And Cole Palmer, as a differential, is an interesting one. Will he get 90 minutes? Probably not. Is Everton the best team to play? Probably not. But it's a good game. That is a good game. And Cole Palmer could be an interesting one. So I do quite like that one because that is the edge. That is the edge on the field, Cole Palmer. Then I have another draft, which is the no Haaland draft. And it's like, I know you're thinking, what are you doing? There's risks and there's risks. Why are you going against Haaland? Well, the reason is, I haven't decided I'm going to, for one, but it's where could that money be distributed? If I am not going for Haaland captain, is the best time, why not go against him for a free hit when he's away at one of the best defences in the league? 3-man centre-backs, Lacroix is a physical player, Guehi is pacey. It's a game where Haaland could struggle. He could. And whether he will or not, I don't know. But if I can find, a different attacker who can score, then suddenly Haaland needs 2 goals against one of the best defences around. And if he doesn't get those 2 goals, then I've just, there's at least £5 million wasted that could have been elsewhere in my team, improving it all. So going against Haaland completely is on the table. I'm not going to deny that. And in this draft, the no Haaland draft, I do like it. It's Sanchez in goal, but it's Chalobah in defence with Timber and Nico O'Reilly. Bruno Fernandes, Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden and Cole Palmer as a 4-man midfield. And then up front, I've got Igor Thiago, Hugo Ekitike and Victor Gyökeres. And I'm actually tempted with this to make Gyökeres captain. Now this is a high risk draft, and I'm interested in it. Is the bench, you've got Harry Wilson and Joachim Andersen as well, so you've got that cover. If Timber misses out, Joachim Andersen comes in. I'm not keen on Andersen. I don't rate him as highly as the projection models and a lot of the engaged managers, because I feel like Andersen is the kind of counter argument to these models. I feel like he's got all the data but it does not translate on the pitch. You know, you sometimes get the players that outperform the data. Jared Bowen, Heung-min Son, for many years, always outperform the expected goals. I feel like Anderson and Fulham defensively are one of those that underperform. Like, fifth best defence by the data last season, but only 5 clean sheets. And you know, this is where the intangibles of football kick in, the intangibles that these projection models can't quite grasp. Is that it's like Newcastle at the minute. They just can't see out a game. They just can't keep that clean sheet. And Fulham are like that. So, but, you know, if you're talking about cover for a risky play on Timber who might not make it, Joachim Anderson away at Burnley, the very least, you cover yourself against the engaged managers, and that's sometimes that's fair enough as a sub. 4.6 million, that's fine. But the rest of it, I quite like it. No Haaland. Instead of Haaland, I've got Gyökeres. Now, Gyökeres is the standout name because he's not been good, except for game week 2 against Leeds, where he got 2 goals. And now he's up against Wolves. Wolves, who have conceded 9 goals to strikers, the highest in the league, along with, I believe, Bournemouth. And, you know, you think, well, maybe I should get Cunha in, but come on now. He could do well, but it's Cunha. I'd much rather have Bruno Fernandes. And maybe I could double up on Man United. I just don't. I feel like the opportunity is to go elsewhere. So Gyökeres as captain is an interesting one. But will he play? You know, this is it. Marino. I heard Gabriel Jesus back. So, you know, Gyökeres could be Eze and it could just be a 5-man midfield. That's fine. You know, that would depend on my risk appetite for tomorrow as the deadline approaches. But I do quite like Gyökeres as a 1-week punt, along with Ekitike as a 1-week punt, and then Cole Palmer as a 1-week punt. And like now, this is exciting to me because these are, well, I don't know if Gyökeres is an elite player, but he certainly was an elite goal scorer last season and he's playing against a championship team. Now, I mean, it might be harsh to call him an elite championship level striker, but that's what he is, and Wolves are a championship level team, so that could be the one. Ekitike, look, he's so good. Like, why did they spend all that money on Isak when I had the solution right there? Sometimes we do crazy things in sport. Sometimes we do crazy things in FPL management. Ekitike, it's an exciting option. He is. Cole Palmer, talked about, and then Foden, Saka, Fernandes need nothing. And then, yeah, Timber would be the gamble, but like I say, you've got Anderson as a cover. I quite like that. I do. And I feel like that's the one I'm leaning towards. Now, the third draft, you talk about, this is what I would call the high-risk, big balls banter draft. Because it's purely, there's a theory in FPL called stacking, which is where if you think a defence is going to do well, you get all of them. You get 3 of them. You think an attack is going to do well, you get 3 of them. And if they do well, you will benefit by far over the field. Now, I tried this last season with Nottingham Forest defence against Fulham in game week 36, and they conceded after like about 2 minutes, and that was the end of that. It looked stupid, but is it time to give it a second go? Is the stacking theory failing the first time I tried it? Reason never to try it again? I don't know. Maybe it's just doing it better. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm going to show you triple Arsenal defence with Jurrien Timber as captain. And, you know, that is what some people might suggest is a good idea. And it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. But I like to... What this game is also about is a bit of banter. And, like, the idea, my man, the D Unit, great interview the other day. Go and watch it because it's worth your time. Talking about why we should reject analytics. And he hates Fulham. He hates that Fulham defence so much. But then when you look at this draft, like, it sounds crazy, but at the same time, if you back Fulham to keep a clean sheet, why wouldn't you go with this? You know, you've got Leno, Anderson and Kenny Tete. Like, can you imagine the banter I could have with D-Unit if that came in? It's almost worth it for that. Virgil van Dijk as another defender. Do I think Van Dijk is a great option this week? Nah, I don't. I don't think Liverpool defence can be trusted. But, you know, if I can't... It's hard to pick a defence. I am finding it hard to pick defensive players this week. So why not Van Dijk? What if imagine he gets a goal and keeps a clean sheet? Imagine Fulham keep a clean sheet and then the D unit sees that. You know, it's almost worth the crack. But then you look at the attack as well. Man, Crystal Palace, they're tiring. They are, and now they've lost one of their best defenders, perhaps their key player, for the way he transitions defence to attack and his energy down that flank. So why not go with Haaland, Foden and Shirky? You know, I mean, would it surprise you if Man City won that game 4-0? Probably not. And if they do, they're the players that are going to be on it. And then Arsenal, they're playing Wolves. Wolves are abysmal. Come on now. So why not triple up on the attack? There's doubts about the defence. We don't know who's playing. It could even be a situation where you've got Christian Norgard at centre-back. And it's all, you know, it's all reserves elsewhere, apart from David Raya. And, like, you know, anyone could score against a reserve defence for any team. You know, this is... Arsenal's defence is great, but if you fill it with the second choice players and players out of position, it does diminish. And, you know, so why not just go for the attack? Go for the attack, hope for the Wolves' early goal, so Arsenal are forced to press on, and then have Saka, Eze and Gyökeres. Like, I mean, especially if Declan Rice misses out, will Eze be on them right-sided corners, the in-swinging corners, perhaps? And then, of course, you've got Bruno Fernandes in the middle. And what else I like about this is I just love the way it looks on the graphic. So I probably won't go for this draft, but it is in the back of my mind. I would like to get some Newcastle into some of them. I know I've got Miley. I know I've got Guimaraes. I know I talked about Lewis Hall as an option. I would like to get some of them in. It's just hard. You know, it's a derby. We're not in the best of form. Although... we've scored 6 goals in our last 2 away games and absolutely thrashed an Everton team who everyone said was going to give us a tough game. So while we may struggle to hold on to a 1-goal lead, I mean, the best way to deal with that is to get a 2 or 3 goal lead. So, you know, whether Eddie Howe will see it that way, it's hard in football because you do tend to think, oh, we'll just grind out a win and build from there. And it's like, well, maybe you should just go and try and blow people away like we did against Everton. You know, maybe if we'd have brought on Wissa, I'm not against a Wissa punt either, because you talk about, if you ask me how I see that game playing out, 1-1, Dan Burn, big Dan Burn and big Dan Ballard goals, you know, which makes me think, well, if I think Burn's going to score, get him in. If I think Burn's going to score, it's probably going to be from a corner, so get Bruno in. And then is that the way the game's going to finish, 1-1? Well, I'm a big believer in the narrative. And Johan Wissa, £55 million, replacement for Alexander Isak. And he's about to play in his first time with a derby. What a time to get your first Newcastle goal. I do believe in the narrative, but... while I believe in the narrative, I also believe in FPL points, and a substitute goal is probably worth 5 at most, unless he gets some bonus. So it just doesn't seem like really worth playing for a 20-minute punt. So I don't know. We'll have to see what the press conferences say, but that's where my thinking is. What I have got today, later on, as well as the press conference, I'm recording the 3rd in the Sol versus Solio series. Very grateful for your support with that and for all the kind comments and the discussion it has generated. The 3rd guest, it's a good one. It's Nick Trigger, and he's coming on, so I'm going to have a good conversation with him today. I've got some good questions lined up. I've got a few more to write. very excited because what I'm liking was we've had Fran, FPL Fran, who is very pro analytics. We had the D unit, very anti analytics. Now we're getting Nick Triggerlips, who has no emotion towards the analytics at all, whose only desire is to improve his FPL team and to win. And I'm liking that. I think that is a nice balance. The way this series is going is lovely. The fourth option I'm going to go for, well, the fourth person in the series, hopefully recorded next Wednesday, is FF Trout from Solio itself. And after that is when I'm going to make my decision. Now, I'm looking forward to Trout. Unless, of course, somebody reaches out and says, here, I've got something I want to say on this matter. And, it's a different angle. But I feel with Trout, the analytics maverick, with Nick Trigger, who uses them as a tool, and then I've got the pro and the anti-arguments, what other angle needs covering? I mean, if you can think of one, let me know in the comments, and maybe we can make it a 5-part series rather than a 4-part series. But at the same time, I am leaning towards Solio, towards giving it a go, I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to talk to Nick Triggerlips later about the best way to go about that. So I'll leave it there. I thought this video would be about 10 minutes, but your old pal, the FPL Nightmare, it is nothing if not verbose. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time.